This week, another war breaks out. Now, what's about to happen is very complicated. Luckily for you, I've assembled the most diverse grouping of sources, from the settlers, to the Minnesota government, to the federal government. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a lot of Dakota sources, so if it seems like there's some things missing, or the Dakota are being portrayed extensively negatively, well, it's because I couldn't find free open sources for this topic. First thing this week is a delegation of the Dakota people who meet with a representative of the government, Andrew J. Merrick. They want to be sold food on credit. They don't have the money now because the government has stalled their payments. Merrick responds thusly: "So far as I'm concerned, if they are hungry, let them eat grass or their own dung." We don't know the context of this comment, but we do know its effect. The starving Dakota are infuriated. Their people are starving, they have been lied to and deceived, kicked out of their homes, and now when asking for the government to fix the government's own problem, they are insulted? Also on the 15th, a battle in Missouri. Major Emory S. Foster has 800 men and is on march to Lone Jack, a small town. He soon receives reports of around 1,600 Confederates. A few hours later, with further investigation, the report brings them down to 800 Confederates. Foster moves into the town, fires volleys at the Confederates, and opens up with artillery. A strong victory. Foster then rests after a very brilliant maneuver. For the Confederates, the artillery is heard from far around, and Colonel Jeremiah Bard Cockrell meets, unites with other Confederate forces, bringing their number to 2,750 men. Next day, Cockrell plans for a mounted assault from the north, and the rest of his forces to engage in a flanking charge. Hayes will lead the northern push. Cockrell looks to the sun. It's up. It's too late. His flanking force is seen. The northern attack should have happened now. In the north, Hayes is finally moving in, but dismounted. Despite these errors, it seems to be working. Infantry is crumbling. They are forced back to Osage orange trees when the Confederates are decimated by artillery fire and crossfire. A force of Confederate cavalry comes in charge of the disorganized force. They charge in, but are shot apart from a flank. They weren't charging Union soldiers, but Confederate ones. They have to withdraw. The disorganized Confederate force also has to withdraw. The Confederates regroup, resupply, and begin the assault again, pushing the Union infantry further away, leaving the Union artillery in the middle of the battlefield. It becomes a grab for the heavy guns. They changed hands, but at the end of the day, the Union held onto them. All it caused was Major Foster being wounded. The last part of the Confederate forces show up on the north. Captain Bronner, who has replaced Forrester, orders a withdrawal. It's a Confederate victory. The Union lost an unknown number. The Confederates also unknown. My best guess is 20 killed, 60 wounded, and 80 missing or captured for the Union, and 39 killed and 79 wounded for the Confederacy. Also on the 16th, the Union payment to the Dakota arrives in Minnesota. Start moving towards Fort Wrigley. On the 17th, the payment arrives, but it's too late. A Dakota hunting party stole food and, after a heated argument, murders 5 settlers. At night, a war council is called. Will Crow, a Mdewakanton chief, is present. Other members of the Dakota tribes are there in attendance. Will Crow does not wish for war, believing it to be impossible to win. A younger member of the council calls him a coward.
Tayatuda is not a coward. I will die with you.
Certain Dakota tribes are ready for war. Not all, though. The northern Dakota tribes, the Sisseton and Wahpeton, don't wish for war. Some agree with Little Crow that it's an impossible fight, but don't share his bravery. Don't want any part in the war. The same day, an ocean away, the CSS Florida is commissioned to the Confederate Navy. It's the first Confederate naval vessel that was constructed outside of the United States. The British military industry has been making a killing off of the war, selling instruments of war to both sides. Remember my financial summary, this outsourcing of military supply has been destroying the Confederate credit rating. But that's an issue down the line. Right now, the Confederates need a navy. Lastly, on the 17th, Major General Edmund Kirby Smith of the Confederacy takes his men and enter Kentucky. Kentucky? This is surprising. The battle for Kentucky was supposed to be over. Western Tennessee has been brought back into the Union, and now Kentucky is being invaded? Back to Minnesota. Members of the Santee Sioux, led by Chief Little Crow, surround the Lower Sioux Agency. Don Crow's command move in to take the building. Indian traders, government officials, and their families are taken by surprise and unarmed. They killed 20 people, all unarmed, including Andrew Merrick. Merrick was trying to flee, jumped out of a second-floor window, and ran for cover, but was killed. As revenge, his head was severed and his mouth was filled with grass. The news of this morning battle soon spreads, and at Fort Ridgely, the word reaches Captain John S. Marsh. His brother's regiment, the 5th Minnesota, has left a company of 50 men near Fort Ridgely. Captain Marsh takes 46 men and a translator and moves towards the Lower Sioux Agency. He and his men were slowed down by people fleeing for their lives, and the Dakota Warband are in quick pursuit. It's just after noon, and he and his men have reached Redwood Ferry when he sees White Dog, also known as Shunkaska, across the river. White Dog and Captain Marsh start talking. Some say Shunkaska was lying to Captain Marsh, and some say he was trying to warn him. But what everyone can agree on is that while Captain Marsh was talking, his men were ambushed. At the sound of a musket shot, the Dakota leave their hiding places. In the chaos, 12 of the 5th Minnesota are killed, and the translator. Marsh tries to rally his men and use volley fire. After a single volley, he has to run. He's surrounded on 3 sides and has to swim to escape. During the retreat, he suffers a cramp and drowns. The ambushers pick off his men. Dakota lost track of the remainder, allowing those who were left to slip away to Fort Ridgely. Only 1 Native American was known to be killed, but more are expected. 24 of the 5th Minnesota were killed. Marsh drowned, and a further 5 were wounded. While the battles of the Lower Sioux Agency and Redwood Ferry raged, the citizens of Milford were massacred. To relieve them, a recruiting party is sent, but are ambushed and fall back to New Ulm. The sheriff of New Ulm doesn't believe the recruiters, expects it to be overblown on drunken rumors. With a few men, he sees the mutilated corpses and is fired upon. The residents of New Ulm organize a makeshift militia of around 50 men armed with 12 rifles, shotguns, and just whatever farm tools they had. It's desperate. The sheriff knows he is now in over his head and gives command to Jacob Nix, a veteran of the 1848 German Revolution. On the 19th, 700 Native Americans appear on the bluffs above New Ulm and open fire. The men under Nix return fire. A thunderstorm comes in and ends the battle. Casualties are low on both sides. The chaos continues on the 20th as slaughter slow. 15 Minnesota settlers are killed by a Dakota warband, or betrayed by a nearby Dakota farmer named Old Prawn. Massacres are happening all over. Settlers flee to the 2 safe places, New Ulm and Fort Ridgely. On the topic of Fort Ridgely, it's been put under siege by around 400 Dakota. Only 65 Company B of the 5th Minnesota Regiment are in the fort, but volunteers bring their number to 180 under Lieutenant Timothy J. Sheehan. With 2 howitzers, a 6-pounder, and an abundance of muskets, the men of Fort Ridgely make their stand on the parade ground. Will Crow orders an assault. The defenders then leave the parade grounds and take cover. With their artillery breaking apart the charge, the desperate Company B of 5th Minnesota unleash their volley, repelling the charges. This is the first use of howitzers in the war, and the Dakota don't know how to deal with them. Under the cover of these howitzers, Sheehan brings all the supplies from the parade ground into the fort. Will Crow retires to the Lower Sioux Agency for the night. The next day it storms. The fort remains under siege, but it gets a 12-pounder Napoleon, fresh water, and the civilians build barricades. The siege will continue into next week. But during this time, a relief party from New Ulm to Fort Ridgely is ambushed and destroyed. But reinforcements are on their way. Back to the 19th. The current governor of Minnesota, Alexander Ramsey, looks to his predecessor, friend, and rival, the first governor of Minnesota, Henry H. Sibley. He is made colonel of volunteers. Despite Sibley having never been in a war before, he is familiar with Dakota tribes, having spoken directly with the leaders of the Mdewakanton, Wahiket, Wahpeton, and Sisseton. Then there is Sickles. His men are given a performance of the Hunchback of Notre Dame. He is called on to speak, and lets the cat out of the bag on his former friends of the secession. This was a whiskey rebellion. The Southern legislators are drunkards.
Whiskey everywhere, in the committee rooms, private houses, at 100 saloons. There never was a state that seceded that did not secede on whiskey. The debate reeked with whiskey. The solemn resolve of statesmanship were taken by men whose brains were feverish from whiskey.
That's where the week ends, and it ends with the Union on fire. Last week, the Union lost to a major victory of the Confederacy at Last week, the Union lost a major battle at Cedar Mountain. This week, the Union might lose Minnesota? This isn't their only problem. The Confederacy is getting major weapons of war from the United Kingdom. Missouri is beating from the inside out, and Kentucky's under assault. But the main problem for the Union is the Dakota War. Over 100 civilians killed. Minnesota infantry has been wrecked. The government is fighting a war on two fronts. It seems the Union is seconds away from further breaking apart. Hello, it's the entire Civil War Week by Week team here, and I'm pleased to announce I have created a Patreon. I'd like to thank Kevin Mack, who has already joined it. It means the world to me. I'm not saying that you should join. This entire production will go on without. It's just if you have the money, and only if you have the money, and you would like to give it to me, I would gladly accept it and forever be in your debt. Now for the normal things. If you liked the video, please like it. If you want to tell me how much you liked it, please comment. If you want to check out what has happened last week, you should be seeing that around now. If you really want to understand the war, you should be seeing a playlist about it right now. Thank you all, and I shall see you next week.